Well, just 5 days left in President Trump's term of office. 4 years has come to an end, and it is not a very good end. Yesterday, the House of Representatives voted to impeach the president. It's the second time that they've done this. Why has this all happened? Well, after the election, Team Trump refused to accept the result and said that it was not clear the whole thing had been done fairly. Was it fair? Well, all I can say is 100 million Americans voted by post, voted early. And what this did, by fair means or foul, is it meant that in the big cities with the huge populations where turnouts historically are low, because of all these paper ballots, turnouts were very high. And of course, in those cities, they were massively in Biden's favor. You can look at all of the anomalies, and there are lots of them. But the point always was, and I said this all the way through, that actually proving something's gone wrong is a very difficult thing to do. And I never thought they'd be able to achieve it. I've seen it myself in this country, and I have to say, I think the French have got it right, that you should only have absentee voting in really exceptional circumstances. But those images of the 6th of January in Washington, D.C., of the mob storming into the Capitol, I'm afraid they're there and they last. And that was what was discussed last night in the House of Representatives, that something awful, dreadful had happened and that somehow Trump had incited them. Well, I think it may have been a mistake to get 500,000 people to assemble on that day in that febrile atmosphere. But the president didn't tell them to go and storm the Capitol, nothing of the kind. And these Democrats in the House, they're the same people, of course, that falsely went through an impeachment process against him a year ago. They're the same people that completely refused to accept the result of the 2016 election that Trump won and have spent 4 years doing their utmost to delegitimize him. And of course, they're the same Democrats who, when we saw widespread violence, endless violence in dozens of American cities caused by the Black Lives Matter movement, either turned a blind eye or made every excuse they could to justify the violence, the arson, and the looting. So the air is thick with hypocrisy. It really, truly is. But much more importantly, I think that by going through this impeachment process, they are making a very bad mistake. And it's a bad mistake because, as Winston Churchill said, be magnanimous in victory. They're doing the opposite. They're being as vindictive as they possibly can, and it shows every sign that they will go on doing that. If you add to that what's happened on social media over the course of the last few days, the Twitter ban on the president, for argument's sake, you're leading into a very dangerous situation. And I say that because Trump has been the voice of tens of millions of American voters. They're people who have absolutely no trust in mainstream media. They're people whose now distrust of social media is growing very quickly. They're people who see Washington, D.C. as being far removed from their lives, their thoughts, their hopes, their aspirations. In fact, they see Washington, D.C., they see the swamp as actually being their enemy. And Trump was their voice. And if you martyr Trump, if that's what the establishment does, not only do they put him, in the eyes of those tens of millions, into some form of sainthood, but they lead to a situation where, with a silenced Trump, something else will come along and head up those tens of millions of people. And I think there's a real danger here, a real danger that somebody far worse in the Democrats' eyes than President Trump will come along as a big political figure, a real danger that you see an organized far-right political party in the USA as they split off from the Republicans, and a real danger that a non-acceptance of legitimacy, a complete refusal to accept the way that their president has been silenced and impeached, will lead to chaos and disorder continuing in America. There is a real danger that this impeachment leads to greater division in a country that's already got these problems. And because of that, I genuinely believe that the Democrats are making an historic mistake and that this impeachment won't help. And sadly, the events of the 6th of January and what's happened since, it's designed, of course, that is seen and thought to be Trump's legacy. The truth is, it's a very different legacy. Now, I've been one of the few voices consistently here in the United Kingdom backing up the president and backing up his agenda. I was asked this morning on Talk Radio, did I regret supporting him and endorsing him during that 4-year period? And this is what I had to say.